Okay. So let me share the screen. Right. So very quickly, uh, what we started on day one was about understanding a company which has very fundamental four business processes: buy, make, transfer, and sell. Uh, Among all these business processes, there is a component of planning and there is a component of execution. So for buy, purchase requisition is a document that is an output of planning, and then purchase requisitions becomes purchase order, that is the execution part of it. Similarly, make process will have a planned order as the planning document, and then that converts into a production order during execution. Transfer has STR as planning document and stock transfer order, which is STO as the execution order. And for sell, the planned predicted element is forecast, and obviously the execution happens via sales orders. So that's what we learned at a high level on day one. And then on day two, uh, we learned a little bit about IBP. IBP is a cloud-based platform from SAP that supports various planning processes. Uh, in planning, we have multiple sub-processes. However, there are two big buckets in which we can divide planning into. One is the demand planning, and other is supply planning. Now, IBP does supports multiple planning processes, including demand and supply planning. Uh, then we also learned that IBP platform is still getting developed, and hence there is a weekly release that happens every quarter. Uh, the latest version number for IBP is 2008, and it will come in next quarter as 2011. So every quarter it gets a new release. Then we also saw that within IBP, we can divide the platform into three big buckets. One was the time series based planning, second was order series based planning, and third was reorder based planning, which is TTMRP. As part of our training, we are more focusing on the first one, which is time series based planning, and then we talked about the basic configuration model that is required for us to configure so that we can perform any time series based planning, be it demand planning, be it supply planning, be it inventory planning. And hence, we tried creating some of the configuration objects like attributes, master data type, time profiles, etc. on day two. Then we moved on to day three, and we learned that instead of creating all these foundation configuration objects right from scratch, we can actually copy the standard sample planning area that has been delivered by SAP that supports most of the time series based planning processes. So we copied the unified planning area on day three, and then we loaded the data that is also which is also being provided by SAP in the RDS. So we saw how do we need to go to RDS, how can we download the files, and then we also learned how to upload those files into planning area. So that's where we stopped yesterday, and now today we will be going ahead and we'll use one of those planning areas that we got created yesterday, and then we'll see how to perform demand planning, what all things are included inside demand planning process, and then we'll see if we can cover supply planning as well. So with that, let's begin today's session. And I start by coming to look at the planning areas, which starts with X. So I can see some of us has tried it, and and we can use one of the planning area that was created yesterday. And I think Vikash has created the planning area yesterday, and it was done, and I can see it is active also. And and the data is also loaded. So what we will do today is to use this planning area, and then we will perform the demand planning processes in this planning area. Okay, so for that purpose, let me first open this planning area in my Excel sheet, and then we'll start with the demand planning processes. So this is a blank Excel sheet. I go on log on. I want to create a new connection. So duplicate, uh, edit XPK UPA. XVK UPA. Okay. So I'm logging into this planning area, which Vikas created, and then while we are okay, this is loaded now. So let's see. Good. So Vikas has already created the templates from the RDS that we had. Okay. So in demand planning process, as you can see, there are 4 templates, and we'll go through one by one in each of them. But before that, let me bring this PPT, which will just structure our talk a little bit more. So demand planning. In demand planning, we'll look at the supply chain network. It will be very similar to what we have seen in day one. Along the company, we had that network. Then we'll talk a little bit about what is demand forecasting. Then we look at the demand planning process. So demand forecasting is different, demand planning is different. So we'll look at that, how they are different. Then we'll see how do we do statistical forecasting in IBP, and etc. Local demand plan, global demand plan recap. So that's the content. Now, a very high-level supply network, which you are seeing right now, is looks like this. So this is similar to what we saw on day one. So suppliers, plants, DCs, and customers are there in your network. So this is again the same thing which we saw on day one. Now, we will focus our discussion on one flow, which is if we take about the finished product, which is IBP 100. So this IBP 100 is the FG, or the finished product, which is produced at all the 3 plants. Okay, 1710 production plant, 1010, 1310. So these are 3 production plants. So this IBP 100, you can see it is being produced at this plant, and then that plant sends it to the DC, which is 1720, and then that DC sells it to the customer, which is 01, 02, and 03. In order to produce this IBP 100, we had seen there was a bill of material, and the raw materials are procured from these suppliers that we see. So while IBP 100 is also being produced at the other 2 plants, and then it goes to the next DC, which is connected to those plants. For simplicity, we may choose to focus at only one plant or one DC. So we'll see that. But we will have to keep this flow in mind while we go ahead. Okay, so that's the network. Now I'm introducing a new word called demand management. So demand management includes these three type of demand related activities. So one is demand review, second is demand planning, and third is demand sensing. So what is the meaning of all this? So if I go back to here, so whenever we do demand planning or whenever we want to do demand management, it is normally done for the finished product at the customer facing distribution centers. So wherever customer is coming and buying the product from, we do the demand management at that location. So in this example or in this diagram, you see the customer is only coming to DC, and hence the demand management is only going to happen at DC, and nothing will happen at plant demand management point of view. Had the customer been buying directly from plant as well, then we could do the demand management at the plant also. So one thing that you should always keep in mind is that demand planning, demand sensing, demand review, demand management, etc. is the process that is only going to happen at a location which is directly selling to customer. If that location is not selling directly to customer, there is no demand planning process that is going to happen at that location. So we all of us must keep that in mind. Okay. So with that definition, if I look at IBP 100, then the demand management for IBP 100 will happen at 1720, 3710, and 6210. At these three locations, the demand management will happen for IP 100. And now we'll see what do we mean by demand management. Okay. So simplicity, I'll write 1710 is the production plant, and this production plant after producing it sends to 1720 DC, and we are talking about IBP 100 here, IBP dash 100. So this is the FG. Okay. So as I said, since 1720 is the DC which is selling to customer, so there is no demand management going to happen at 1710. So for simplicity, we'll see what does it mean to do demand management at 1720. Okay, so at 1720, the demand management will include all the three things, which is demand review, demand planning, and demand sensing. Okay, and we'll understand little bit about the meaning of all this, and then, or maybe I think I will first explain you what is demand planning, and then I will extend that concept to what is demand sensing and demand review. While these things will also be enabled by IBP, but we are not going to cover that in our training right now. So when I say demand planning, basically what it means is that we are going to do uh, we are going to do uh, demand for statistical forecasting and other things in weekly bucket. Okay, so so normally what happens when we go for demand planning, we have a choice whether we want to look at my history in a daily buckets and do the forecasting in the daily buckets in future, or I want to see the history in weekly buckets. So there is a time granularity that comes into picture. So I'll write time, and if you don't understand, please ask me again. So when we do DR, we normally look at the numbers in monthly bucket. When you do demand planning, we look at the numbers at weekly bucket, and when we do demand sensing, we look at daily bucket. So this is the first difference between these three terms. And all these three is going to happen for the same set of product. There is no other product coming into picture because this is the product which is getting produced and being sold. Okay. So for this product only, the demand review is going to happen, the demand planning is going to happen, and demand sensing is going to happen. It is the same location product for which all these three things are going to happen. Okay. So for now, let's understand what is the meaning of demand planning. So as I said, the demand planning will happen in a weekly bucket. So that's why I have written weekly numbers here. And then you have some sales history number, which we bring from S4 by capturing the sales orders that has gone into past. And then we apply some algorithm to create the forecast. So that's called statistical forecast. Statistical forecast. Okay. So you will get some number here, and I'm hearing a lot of beeps. So is it somebody coming and going multiple times? Okay. So this is the meaning of, so what will happen as part of demand planning process. So I'm now talking about demand planning only. As part of demand planning process, we'll have the historical data in the weekly bucket, and we will run an algorithm and we'll generate the statistical forecast in the weekly bucket. So that is the meaning of demand planning process, and it will happen for the product at customer facing distribution centers. If the customer is being sold from a production plant also, then the demand planning will also happen at that location. So that is the first thing that we must understand. Uh, so that's why here we have written demand review happens in the monthly bucket, planning happens in the weekly bucket, and sensing happens in the daily bucket. The product and customer is the level at which the demand sensing happens. Planning happens at product location and also customer level, and then product category and customer group is the level at which the review is going to happen. So we'll move on. And we come to demand planning. Now we are in this slide, we are talking about the demand planning. So demand planning is going to happen at weekly, product, location, and actually there is a customer as well. So at customer level. And it happens for 1 to 2 years time horizon in the future. So there are 3-4 terms that we need to understand. First of all, history, the history that is going to be used for forecasting. So can somebody tell what is the difference between history and consumption? I think we have talked a little bit about consumption data last 2-3 days. So can somebody try what is the difference between history that is going to participate in demand planning and consumption? Vikas, can you try? Or you can just define what is history. What do you understand by history?
History is basically we'll say that what we have sold into our previous time horizon, like 2-3 years or 4 years back, what we have sold into our for the particular customer or from a particular location. History is somewhat, I'll say that is history for a particular component.
So in this diagram, this IBP 100 also exists at 1710, and IBP 100 also exists at 1720. Now, obviously, 1720 gets the IBP 100 product only from 1710, which means 1710 is sending this product to 1720. So, can we get history at 1710 as well? Because it is sending the IBP 100 to 1720.
Yeah, we can get transfer history, not sales history.
So, Vikas, what is your answer to that question? Will we get history at 1710 for IBP 100?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is the exact reason why I am stressing on this point. Okay. Who answered the?
Yeah, this is Praveen. I said like there will
Yeah.
be transfer history, and sales history will be at DC only.
Correct. So because so that's the very important understanding that we must understand about history, and that's where everything start differentiating for consumption-based planning and this forecast-driven planning. So whatever we are sending from 1710 to 1720, is an internal transfer. It is not a sales history. And hence that does not become a history, and we are not going to do any statistical forecasting at 1710. However, whatever we sell from 1720 is being sold to an external customer, and that is only the sales history that we capture, and that participates in creating the statistical forecast. And hence, in this setup, we will never get any statistical forecast for 1710, even though we are having a transfer history from 1710 to 1720. So I wanted to make this clear to everyone because that is the very, very important fundamental understanding that we all must have. Good. So Praveen, that was right answer. And hence, if I go back to our Excel.
Pankaj, I have one
Yes.
doubt here. But see, what I am transferring to another unit is also a kind of sale for me. Means from because it is generating revenue for me because I am transferring my something which I have produced in my plant, and I'm transferring it to the another plant. So it's a kind of means I will say it's a kind of sale as a trade sale, or I will not say it is a normal routine sale, but it can be means a sale also, like trade sale or something else. That okay, I'm transferring it because it is generating revenue, and my second subsidiary plant, which is might be I'm transferring it from Delhi to Chennai. So Chennai will definitely will give me some cost onto it, and he will clear the bills, and it will generate some revenue. So so it should.
Okay. See, so in S4 or ECC, you have the concept of company code. Okay. So the transfer, so let's talk about transfer. So when the transfer happens between a plant to DC, if both of them belong to same company code, then the STO is created with a document type called U, and there is no account settlement happening there. So there is a free transfer. If the plant and DC belongs to two different company codes, then the transfer will happen using an STO of document type NB, and in that case, the account settlement will happen. But it is still an STO. We are not saying it as a PO or SO. But if this DC belongs to some other, it is out. If the DC is outside my organization, or even if it is inside my organization, but if the DC wants something, and if it creates a PO instead of STO, and for that PO, if the plant creates an SO and then it transfers the goods based on SO, then it will be considered as the sales history. So depending upon how the relationship is maintained in S4, if the relationship between these two entities is as PO-SO relationship, then the plant will have the history. But as long as the transfer is happening based on an STO, whether it is intra-company or inter-company, there is no history that is going to get captured at plant. So that is how we define a history. Okay. All right. So very nice. Yeah. Anything else?
No, I just wanted to add like one point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like we are doing planning at DC, and we are just transferring the planning data to plant 1710, but we are not doing any planning. Okay. We are getting the planning data for DC, so but we don't do any planning at plant level. We only get the requirement from DC and the production, and we just transfer the data to DC.
No, we will do planning at plant, and while we do planning at plant, we will generate plant order, but the requirement at plant will
that would be dependent. Right?
Yeah, absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. Yes. So that's the difference. But if we have done the consumption-based planning, then we would have get the consumption at plant by looking at what we transferred, and that consumption would have given you the reorder point at plant, and then that reorder point at plant would have given you the plant order.
Right.
So that's
there is no forecasting.
Correct. So there will be no forecast at plant. Absolutely correct. Okay. So very nice. That's a very important concept that we understood. Now let's get back to the PPT, and then so that's why I have written what is history and how it is captured. Very most important thing in demand planning, so that you understand what is history. The second is obviously forecast. So wherever we capture history, we want to predict what we are going to sell in future. So forecast is a placeholder for your customer sales orders. Forecast is not the placeholder for the future STOs. So that's why the forecast is the placeholder for future predicted sales orders, and it is getting generated based on the historical number that we captured. Manual adjustment is about adjusting the forecast number for future. Promotions is also some adjustment, and when we do so, this is forecast which is being generated by the system. Manual adjustment, promotion, etc. We do it manually, or we have other systems to give you a number, and all of them all together gives you the final forecast number or final demand quantity which we use for our supply planning, and hence all of them together is called demand planning. So just generating a forecast is not demand planning. Just generating a forecast is demand forecasting or statistical forecasting. So generating a forecast is forecasting, but adding more intelligence to that forecast number in terms of manual adjustment, promotion planning, trade promotions, etc. And then whatever final number we get is called final demand quantity, which is used for supply planning, and that entire process is called demand planning. Okay, so we should understand that also. Now for IBP demand, we have already seen that the RDS documentation is there in the SAP website. So we have seen that the configuration we have done yesterday. We have created, so Vikas has created the planning area. We'll use that. Data load. So we have done the data load. Template creation. We have seen how to create it, and Vikas has already created. So this step is done. We can move ahead now. This one very quickly. This is the demand planning process. Those who are going to work in IBP will need to understand the overall each of these boxes. But it starts with ABC XYZ segmentation. So it is about segmenting your product. So we have seen that we have IBP 100, IBP 200, IBP 300. There are many finished products. So we do a segmentation called ABC XYZ. The ABC represents the relative speed in which it is being sold. So A is the category in which products are being sold very frequently, fast moving products. B is medium moving and C is slow moving, means the sales for C kind of products are less. So this is how the products are, the entire portfolio of your finished products are given some segmentation to bucket them in a way whether they are fast moving, sold very frequently, or less sold, or not sold at all. So that is the segmentation that happens. Then that segmentation is being done. Then new product introduction is about if there is a new finished product that has been introduced. So there is a process to manage that. And then there is a next step, which is about to gather and cleanse historical data. What it means is that when we capture the historical data for my finished product in the past, in some cases you might be missing historical data in some of the weeks, or since there was a promotion, so the historical number that you're getting includes your baseline sales and also your promoted sales for that week. So you want to remove those promoted sales so that you get the baseline sales. So that ways there is a adjustment or cleansing happens in your historical data, so that when the statistical forecasting happens, it gives you the baseline forecast, which does not include the promotions, etc. Because we want to add promotion separately, and we want to have a baseline forecast, which is not including of any promotions, etc., etc. So we do the historical cleansing. And then we run the statistical forecasting. So after doing the historical cleansing, we get the forecast number in the future. This happens in the past, this happens in the future timeline. Once the statistical forecasting happens, then we create the local plan, local demand plan. We'll see what is the meaning of local demand plan in the template. And then we create the global demand plan. Once the global demand plan is created, it is sent across in various subsequent processes. So it goes to your demand review process, it goes to demand sensing process, it also goes to error calculation, and it also goes to inventory optimization. And we can also send it across for supply planning. So we'll look at that. But you can see the color, the orange color. These are the steps within demand planning process. So today we are going to discount this new product introduction, and we look at these four steps. So we will now see that it is very sequential step. First, you clean the data, which is in the past, and the historical data you have seen that we either load via the Excel sheet or we bring it from S4. So once we have the cleansing done, then we run an algorithm, we'll see that, and we create the forecast. So we are generating a number here. Then on that statistical forecast, we'll do some manual adjustment, etc., and we'll create the local demand plan, and we'll do another adjustment, or we'll do some aggregation, disaggregation to make it, to create a global demand plan. So these are the four steps that we'll perform. And finally, in the global demand plan, we get the global demand planning quantity that will be released for further processing. All right. So these are the four steps of your demand planning process. This is how it happens. So data integration we saw by Excel, we load the data. This is about loading your historical data. Data cleansing, we'll see how we will do the cleansing in statistical forecasting. We'll look at that. Now, within data cleansing, these are the steps. So missing values. So if the values are missing, how to substitute a missing value. If there is an outlier, which means there is a big sale that happens in one of the weeks because of something, some event that happened in that week. So you want to correct that outlier. And if there was a promotion in your historical data, so there are three things that we do while we cleanse the historical sales data. And after cleansing, what we get is baseline sales history. Baseline sales history means the history which was a normal sales that happened, excluding your outlier one-time events or promotions. Okay, so that is, so these are the three things that happens in the history cleansing. It is being performed in the pre-processing step, which you'll see in the system. Pre-processing step, okay, it is all about history cleansing. Demo. So we'll go to the system and we'll see the demo about the history cleansing. But before that, let me show you the four templates that are there. So now you can imagine the meaning of these four templates. Okay. So first template is about history cleansing, history data cleanse. So we will have key figures here which are relevant for historical numbers. The second template is about statistical forecast. So we'll have the key figure which are more for statistical forecasting. Similarly, local demand plan and global demand plan. So you can now understand how SAP has first defined the demand planning process steps. So demand planning process has 4 steps, and all these 4 steps are being enabled in these standard delivered templates. So let me load the first one, and we will see what it means to do the history cleansing there. Okay, very nice. So this is the template that Vikas created, and he also loaded the actuals quantity. So actuals quantity is our historical key figure. So this is the key figure where we have the historical data. How to read this number? So can someone tell me what does this 1400 represents in week 38? Can somebody try? What is the business meaning of this number? This 1400 here?
Is it actual sales quantity?
Sales quantity, yes, but whose sales quantity?
The finished part.
What is the name of that finished product?
SG126.
Yes, yes. And where? This product is being sold at many DCs.
Yeah, this is the customer where we are selling him from this location 3710.
Yes. So now can you summarize everything in one sentence? What does this 1400 means?
Yeah, the 1400 quantity that we are selling to this customer from this location, and the product ID is SG126.
Absolutely correct. Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. So 1400 quantity is the sales history of product FG126 that was sold from location 3710 to the customer 0001. The same product from the same location was also sold to another customer, and in that month, incidentally, the sales quantity was same, but it can be also different, right? The same product was sold from another DC which is 6210 to a different customer which is 6210001, but the quantity in that month sold to that customer was 674. So that's how we must understand the business meaning of these numbers. Okay, so this is how, and this is what it means. Now, if I just want to focus on one FG for the simplicity of our understanding, so let's do that. So I'm going to create a filter. So product ID. I want to have just one product, which is IBP not wanted 100. Add IBP 100. Click on OK. So while we have all the data available, what I'm seeing right now in this template is only about IBP 100. Okay, so so you will see these are all past weeks. You can take a look here. So these are all past weeks. Why? Because in this template we have come to do a history cleaning. So there is a purpose for which I have come to this template, and that purpose is about cleaning the history, and the history always is available in the past, and hence we are seeing the past values. Is there a way to mute this this beep of people dropping and joining? Can we do that? I don't know why it is giving us so many beeps. Okay. So you can see, so for IBP 100, let's look at the locations. So 1720, 3710, and 6210. There is no other location here, only 3 locations. And can we check if you go back to our diagram here? You see these are the 3 DCs. So we are capturing history only for these 3 DCs and not for the production plants, and hence we only have these 3 DCs. Incidentally, while one DC can sell to 3 customers, this product is only being sold to this customer, and hence you have this combination of product, location, and customer, and you have these numbers that were sold to this customer. Okay, now since we have loaded the data ourselves, so this data looks good, and we don't see any missing data. But if there was any missing data, then the history cleansing process would have helped us to. If you think that this 88 is blank for now, if you assume that, then this process of history cleansing will help us to get a number over here. Okay, so I will go to Fury app, and we'll look at the forecast, manage forecast model. So this is a configuration that we need to make. Configuration that we need to make. For us to be able to do the history cleansing. So this is where there is a manage forecast model app. So we are going to go there. What happened? Manage forecast.
So Pankaj, we cannot enter any quantity in template directly, right?
We can, but in those key figures where we are allowed. So this key figure, which is actual quantity adjusted, this is an editable key figure, and the purpose of this key figure is to edit manually. Right. So you can do it here, but not to this key figure, because this is for the purpose of storing what happened in the past. So this is a factual key figure. We don't want to change this. But any changes that we want to do, that's where we have the another key figure. Okay. All right. Now what is happening? Why app could not be opened because SAP UI component application could not be loaded. I'm really getting annoyed with this sound. I don't know what to do. I can only request if there are 1 or 2% who are getting dropped off every time, please don't join because it's really annoying and taking away my focus. So this is my request. If you are getting dropped multiple times, somebody, please don't join because
Yeah, I think you can mute all. No,
no, it is not about somebody speaking. It is this beep, which is somebody is dropping every time and then coming back probably. Will that go by mute all?
No, it
Yeah.
won't go.
Huh?
No, I don't think so. It will.
No, the sound is also from mute on mute, I guess.
Okay, let's see mute all. No. Oh, sorry. So I am going to mute all, and then when somebody wants to speak, please unmute yourself. But here I see this dropping of voices, sound is still appearing even with mute all. So, anyways, that was my request. If you are getting dropped very multiple times, please don't join. Otherwise, we'll lose some time. Okay. So let's see now. Manage forecast model. Let's try in this.
It's working for me, Pankaj. It's opening for me. Manage forecast models.
Well, it will work for me also. I don't know, there is some issue with browser. Manage forecast. Okay. So this is a very important config which helps us in performing the all 4 steps of demand planning process that we have seen. Okay. So let me bring the planning area that we have created. So this is the planning area, and I'll click on go. You can see that there are 5. There are 5 models which are already available in this planning area. I am sure Vikas has not created it himself, but since we copied the unified planning area, SAP IBP1, hence these 5 models were copied. Okay, so we will take a look at one of the model, and then if you want to create a new one ourselves, we can do it. Okay, so let's take a look at one of the one. This is standard deviation actuals quantity. So this is the model name. I'm going to go inside it. Sai has left the meeting. So let's see if he comes back. Then we'll ask him to not join.
You can, I think, mute all the exit and entry also from the participants.
How can we do that?
In the top of the menu options, you see participants, and under the participants, you will see entry and exit at tone that you can tick off.
Yeah.
Where is
Pankaj, I just shared a screenshot on your Teams. Please check that. We can go ahead with it.
It's under the participants on the top menu. I think you need to stop the sharing first, then only.
Okay. participants.
The top of the menu option like file edits,
Mute all entry, mute on entry.
yeah, entry exit both.
Ah, okay. Good.
Just need one page and 10 exit.
Yeah, I did that. So let's hope it will not bother us again. Very nice. Okay. So very important for demand planning process. This is one of the config additional to what we have been doing that needs to be done. So so this is one of the forecast model that already existed, but if we create a new one, you will have to give the name. So this is the name that's already there. Then what happens, you will have to tell the time settings. So whether the history cleansing that is going to happen, is it going to happen in the weekly bucket or daily bucket? So since we are working in the demand planning process, so periodicity is going to be week, but you can do other granularity also if needed. Now, how many historical periods I want to? So 156 means 156 weeks in the past. That's what the meaning is. So, so 156 weeks in the past, I'm going to do the historical cleansing, or we are going to do use the historical data of 156 in the past to generate the forecast. So that is the meaning of this. 52 weeks of forecast period, which means when the forecasting will run, we will get the forecast number for 52 weeks in the. Okay, so this is the meaning of this. While there are other buttons, other fields also here. I'm not going to details, but when you are going to learn about it, you need to go there in the IBP application help, and let me show you this particular portion here, because everything is there in this help. So within business application, I'm going to go to demand planning. And then in demand planning, there is a statistical forecasting. And then within the statistical forecasting, these are the process steps, that's fine. But it will also talk about manage forecast models. And then within manage models, it is going to explain you all the tabs of manage. So general, pre-processing step, forecasting steps. So all this. So within general, if I go to the general, it will talk about each of the field that we have been seeing. So now you can see periodicity. We have seen it was weekly, historical periods that we are seeing. There is a guidance also how many historical periods you should be keeping, 152 or what. So there is a formula here. Forecast period, offset. What is the meaning of offset? All these details are available there on the website. Okay, so we can read that and then we can fill the values as needed. So that's the first tab, which is general tab. Now the second tab in this model is called pre-processing step. Okay, now this is the tab where we maintain the history cleansing related information. All right, so I incidentally in this forecast model, there is no pre-processing step. But if you want to create a pre-processing step, you will have to tell, you will have to select plus, and then you will see what pre-processing that I want to do. So if I say I want to substitute for missing value, so it says, okay, how do you want to do that? So I'm saying use the mean, which means in last 152 weeks, if there are values in 150 weeks and there are 2 weeks where the values are missing, so take the mean of 152 weeks value and whatever number you are getting, put that number in those missing weeks. So that is the meaning of mean. So you can use mean, you can use median of the available numbers, you can give a given value that if there is something missing, always put 150, for example. So you can give a firm value, or instead you can ask the system to calculate the mean of the historical numbers that you have, and then put that number in the missing period. Okay, time scope in history only, because there is no need of doing history correction in the future because there is no number existing in the future. Input for algorithm. So what is the key figure which we are going to look at while looking at the corrections. So input will be your actual quantity, because this is where we are storing the past weekly forecast numbers, correct? So this is, if I go back to our Excel sheet, this is the actual quantity. These are the numbers, actual numbers. For other combination, this is where we are keeping the actual numbers. So this is the key figure. These are the numbers that the system is going to check. And if it is finding that for a particular week, let's say here, if the number is missing, then for this week, it will calculate the mean of all these numbers and it will put a value over here. However, when it puts the value in this missing bucket, it will not put the value in the actual key figure, actual quantity itself. Rather, we will tell which key figure it should put the value. So save the result in. So here we'll put actual quantity adjusted. Actual quantity adjusted. So what it means is that look at the actual quantity key figure, and if you find any week where the calculate the mean of all other buckets value and put that mean value in the actual quantity adjusted key figure in that bucket. So after we run it, we will still find that this bucket in this key figure is still blank, but we will find the value which is the mean of all the other values to be populated in this key figure. So understood? This is the meaning of pre-processing step substitute missing value.
Pankaj,
Yeah, Vikas.
what if we give this save results in the same key figure, this actual quantity? Is there any impact on it, or
Yeah, I have not tried it, but what I can
Okay.
think of happening is that if you put the same key figure, first of all, whether this key figure is allowed to store the value by the algorithm, we'll have to check that. But if it puts the value, then the mean of this key figure will change. So we can try that, whether it accepts that number or not. But the best practice is that we don't tamper with this key figure, because it is a fact that has happened in the past, and planner need to know that. And any adjustment, any correction that we do, we keep it another key figure. So the practice is not to play with this number.
Okay.
Okay, right.
And every time we need to manage these forecast models,
No,
whether we are
no.
copying it or
One time
no
we.
means
Hmm.
no means initially when we copy any planning area or planning model
Yeah.
into a new, then we have to initially we have to manage this
Yes.
forecast model.
Yes. But if you look at any customer to whom we do the implementation, there's only one-time activity. So we create only one planning area in the beginning. We load data, and all this configuration we do for the one time, and then they just use it. So there is
Okay.
we don't need to do it multiple times. Okay. So that is how I'm just going to another one to take a look whether there is a pre-processing step in this one. So let's see. And what we are seeing right now is all coming from the copy of the standard. We can certainly create a new one, and that will be available for us to use. Okay. So let it come up. It is taking a lot of time, long time. Yeah, very nice. So you can see here, this best fit forecast model has two history correction algorithms. Okay, so one is missing substitute missing value. In this, there is no save result in key figure, and the input itself is your actual quantity adjusted. So I will assume, I will have to check that if you look at this key figure, and if it finds something missing, then it will put the mean value in the same key figure itself. Okay, because there is no target key figure here. But we will have to check that. I have not checked it. And the second one, so it was about missing values. And second is about outlier correction. Outlier correction means what? In any week, so normally you see in last 150 weeks, your sales history is around 50, 60, 50, 60, like that. But in one of the week, it finds that the sales was 250. Okay. So what it will do for that particular week, there is an outlier. So it will perform the correction. So for that week, it will also bring the history from 250, it will make it 75 or so. And in order to do that, there are multiple methods. So interquartile range, variance test. Okay. What is the meaning of all this? Just you have to go here and you will find out the meaning of all this. Pre-processing step, outlier correction. So SAP has given everything very beautifully. It has explained the meaning of all the things that we have got in IBP. So outlier detection method, interquartile range test. So what it means, 25% of the data, etc., etc. All these things are there. So you can read here and understand the meaning of that. But the purpose of that test, what is that? Purpose of that step is to ensure that you are cleaning the history of that bucket where there was a big sale, one-time sale. And again, the input for algorithm in this case is your actual quantity adjusted. So I will assume that after correction, it will write the output in the same key figure. Okay. So there are the two history corrections happening in the pre-processing steps. Okay. So this is where we perform this. Now, you know, so if I go to this template, so what happens if I want to do the history corrections over here? Let me say, so I can make this week 21 2020. I'm going to delete this and save it for now. Okay, save it. So since the history correction input key figure is actual quantity adjusted, so system will know that it needs to do something because there is a value missing over here. Okay, and we'll see what it does after I run the history corrections. There's some network issue, it looks like to me. Okay, while it is coming up, let's not waste time. So we'll go back to this manage forecast model. So you understood the pre-processing step is about history cleaning. Then we have second step, another tab, which is about forecasting step. So we maintain the settings here, which is relevant for forecasting process. So, so main input for forecasting. So we are giving actual quantity adjusted is my input for forecasting process. Okay, why? Because this has got the cleanse history data. The actual quantity key figure we are keeping, we are having the numbers which is the factual numbers, and we are not changing the numbers over there, and that's why we are not using that as the input for forecasting process. But as you can see, it's a you can select it as you want. Okay, so you can also choose to select your actual quantity key figure. If you select that, then you can refer the numbers that are there in the actual quantity. But since we make the adjustment here, so we select this. Then the target key figure for forecast. So where the system generates the forecast number for future, this is the key figure where it will write the value. So statistical forecast quantity is the key figure where the system will write the forecast numbers. Okay. Exposed, let me not talk about it for now. Exposed, or let me talk about it. So exposed forecast quantity is the quantity that is getting generated in the past. So if I say my historical data in the past is 50, 60, 60 for last 3 weeks, then I run the forecasting and the future says 70, 80, 90 is my future 3 weeks of forecasted number. So looking at the forecast number of 70, 80, 90 for future, system goes to the past and generates some number for the past also. So 70, 80, 90 if the future number. So if we go to the past, it will bring you 50, 45, 30. So then you have a forecast number in the past as well, and that is called ex post forecast quantity. More you can read on the website. Acha. Then, so you give what is the input for forecasting, what is the output key figure for forecasting, and then you give the algorithms. So which algorithm to use? So automated exponential smoothing. So if this is one algorithm which is going to generate the forecast, it will ask for some setup. What is alpha? What is beta? How much should be the gamma and all that? And what is the impact of all this? That you can read over here. So forecasting step. So forecasting steps, main input, target key figure, target algorithms. So target key figure, forecast algorithms. Okay. So as an IBP consultant, this is the real value add that we bring. This is the functional understanding that we bring to the table about all these. So which one we were looking right now? This is your automated exponential smoothing. Okay, so that's here. So along with all the configuration etc. that we have been doing for last 2 days, I focus more on this because this is the real value add that we bring to the table. Okay, so automated exponential smoothing, and then this is where all the things are detailed. What it means, what is seasonality, what is the meaning of alpha, gamma, theta, etc., etc. So once you read it, you will be able to understand more. So that is how we maintain the settings for these forecasting algorithms, and then based on that, the system will generate the forecast number. Okay, so that's your third tab. So first was general. So in general, we maintain periodicity. How many weeks we are looking at in the past? How many weeks we are going to generate forecast in the future? Pre-processing is about cleansing your history. Forecasting step is about telling what are the forecast algorithms that we are going to use. And then last is post-processing step, which is about creating the error. So whenever we do the forecasting, we generate error, and there are shoot errors called MAP, MSC. Mohammed, can you go on mute, please? Okay. Mohammed has gone somewhere by keeping himself not on mute. Yeah, okay. So post-processing step is a place where we tell the system that whenever we do forecasting, which error I want to measure. What is an error? An error is an indicator of accuracy of your forecast. So we talked about ex post little bit very briefly, but when the forecasting happens, it creates the ex post forecast, which means it generates the forecast number in the past. And since in the past we also have the actual sales history, so ex post forecast is compared to actual sales history, and then we get the error. So MAP, MP, these are the errors, and those errors will appear in the target key figure. So in this case, you can see model fit error map. This is the key figure where we will see what is the error percentage that we have got. Okay, so that is the fourth step in our forecast model. So this is the setup that we perform to begin with, and this is being done for the planning area, and then in that planning area, we can run the forecasting, and then we get to see all this. So now I'll go back to Excel. What happened? Okay, so two things. So first of all, I have deleted the value here, which is in week 21, and I will also make a big quantity in one of the buckets. Let me do that here. I should have not saved it. Okay. Let me make it 1000. So it's a big number here. I can now save it. And I will also show you what is the forecast right now for us for this data, if there is any forecast, because when we run that forecast model, it will perform all this history cleansing also and forecasting also, everything at the same time. So that's why let us look at the forecast for this product location combination, and then we'll run that. So while this is going on, I hope whatever we are doing is making sense to all of us, because there are less questions. So I'll assume that. Normally it is not this much slow. My God. I have not seen IVP taking so long. This first time I'm seeing. Great, thank you. So it has happened. Now, the place where I made it 0, it is not happening, because if you remember yesterday, this key figure has a calculation written into it that if null, so if it finds a null value in one of the buckets, then by default it copies the value that is there in the actual quantity, and hence I'm not able to make it 0. Okay, but I can make it a very small number, and I'll not make it right now because it will take a lot of time, but it has accepted a big number, which is 1000. So when we run the forecast model, we will come back to this week 21 and see whether this 1000 has been corrected or not. So that's now I'm going to load the other template as well before I run that forecasting job, which is your statistical forecast template. So let it come up. So I will load that. Okay, so if I go into the future, so the future starts from here. Week 42 onwards is the future. Okay, um, so this is the future, and based on the setup that you have seen, the stat forecast quantity is the key figure where the statistical forecast will be seen. Okay, so right now it is blank, and we have the actual quantity adjusted in the past bucket. So all what we are seeing right now here is the past numbers. Okay, so now you can visualize the purpose and meaning of these templates. So we are creating multiple templates for a purpose. So cleansing was the purpose because of which this template was created, and we only included these key figures. But in this key figure, forecasting is the purpose, and hence we have included this key figure, which is called statistical forecast quantity. So while the planning area, which is behind all these templates, remains the same, and it has 460 or 470 key figures, we are creating these different templates for the purpose for which we want to work. Okay, now I am going to go to statistical forecasting, click on run. So when I click on run, it brings us here. I will use the filter, which is IBP 100, just that it comes up faster. And then time period is week. And this is the place where we can select the model. So we'll use best fit because this had the pre-processing step. Okay. Base version, yes. Target is each, and then we'll click on run. So by running this job, what is our expectation? We have two expectations. One, that the week 21 outlier quantity of 1000 will be corrected into, and second, the statistical forecast quantity key figure over here will have some values in the future. So these are the two purposes for which I have run that job. Okay, so let's see if that job, what is the status of that job. So we'll click on the status. So it is still running. I think I will need one more session to cover the supply planning because otherwise it will be too fast.
Yes, Pankaj.
So we will have another session tomorrow, and then we'll cover the supply planning tomorrow. Otherwise, we'll not do justice to supply planning. Refresh. It's still running. It's still running. So now, by the time it is running, let's talk a little bit about this. So you will be able to now correlate what we started doing on day one. We told that this is my company. I want to do demand planning, which means I wanted to have a predicted sales quantity for this product in future, and which is what we are going to get right now once this run gets completed. So now you can tie back to whatever we have been learning. And this is the real purpose for which we are using IBP. What we learned in last 2 days about configuring planning area, etc. Those are the one-time configuration that is required for us to be able to perform these business functions. Okay, so it has now finished. Okay, so let's come back to our Excel. And first we go to this first template, which is history cleansing. Okay, you can keep an eye. Let me make it a different color, green color, and we'll do a refresh to see if system has done anything or not. Okay, so it looks like it has not done anything. Whether those outlier correction algorithm, the interquartile or whatever it was, I don't think it has done anything because after refresh it is not changing. So we'll have to check why it did not do, but the expectation was that it will make this value as closer to these other numbers that we can see. So we'll have to check, we'll see later what happened. And then here we are expecting that we should get to see numbers in this key figure. So let's do a refresh here. So we can see the numbers appearing here. So can someone explain the meaning, the business meaning of this value 228? What does this indicate in business terms? Praveen? Yeah. Yeah, somebody else.
Yeah.
Yep. For IBP 100 material location 1720 for customer 0017100001 for the week 46 we need to forecast 228 quantity, means we need to uh, uh, produce this much of quantity, or we need to sell this much of quantity.
No produce. Produce is
Sale. Yeah.
produce has nothing to do here.
Yep.
Somebody else
You
was
need to be ready with this much quantity for this by this
Yeah.
week.
Yes, yes, and even ready is probably not the right word, but all of us are close, very, very close to the answer. So let me speak about this.
One more thing, like I would like,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
this is the finished part. Okay, so we have the semi-finished and the raw materials and all things. So by
Yes,
doing the planning, we have to make sure like to produce 228 quantity by this week. We need to have the stock of the raw materials and the semi-finished. So we should start
though, yeah,
procuring. Yeah,
yeah. Those things will come later in supply planning. We are just right
yeah.
now we are doing the demand planning, and hence this 228 represents that IBP 100 product will be sold to the customer triple dash one triple zero one from location 1720 in week 46 as 228. So I will be selling 228 quantity to this customer for this product at this location in week 46. That is the meaning of this. To the same customer from the same DC, I will be selling this IBP 100 as 212 in week 52. So this is the business meaning of all these numbers, right? And as we can see that we have different numbers for different DC for the same product, because the historical numbers for the same product at these different DCs for different customers are different, and hence we are getting to see all these numbers are different. Okay, so with this we are able to generate. So that was the purpose, that we wanted to generate the future forecast, statistical forecast quantity numbers for my material, and which we are able to see it here that it has got generated. Okay, so since I ran the forecasting only for IBP 100, so that's why we are able to see the forecast number for 100. If I load another finished product, which is IBP 110, okay, so then you will be able to see that it is still missing the stat forecast values, and we'll have to run the forecast run again. And we can run forecasting for all my products at once if I choose to. So here you can see IBP 110 is there, and it is missing the values because I did not run the job for this product. So depending upon what level I am running, it will generate the numbers. So this is the demand planning process, and within demand planning process, we have completed the statistical forecasting part. Now you will see that all these numbers are getting generated for this combination: product, location, and customer, right? As we move on, which we will now, so we'll go to the third step in the demand planning process, which is your local demand plan. So what is the meaning of local demand plan? We'll see that. But we have seen right now that the first two steps were about cleaning the history and generating the forecast number. And for that, we had created one forecast model, and we ran one job, and that job was able to cleanse the history as well as generate the forecast numbers. So once the forecast numbers are generated, then what is the next step in the process? We generate the local demand plan. Okay, and what it means is load this one product to make it a little bit easier for us to understand. Okay, now we have loaded one product, which is IBP 100. Okay, so you can see IBP 100 here in this key, in this one, and this exists in these three different locations. So you can see that. Now this is the value that we got generated by running that job, right? These are the numbers which are given by sales department. So there is a sales department who thinks that for this product, for this customer from this location, we will be selling a different number in these weeks. So he gave some number. So you are able to see these numbers over here. Last year, what was the sales that is appearing here? So it is nothing but the offsetted number from the past. So actual quantity prior year. So in week 34 in 20, okay, 1 minute. What is the current bucket? Is week 34 the current bucket? Yeah, looks like week 34 is the current bucket. So what was the sales in week 34 of 2019? That number is appearing here. Okay. So a planner, if I am the planner, I have the visibility of these three numbers. So what system has said that in week 34, I will be selling 144 to this customer from this location for this product. What my sales people who are on ground are saying, we will be selling 200. What was really sold last year at this in this bucket for this combination? 271. And then I can decide, okay, boss, I think I will be selling 215 in this bucket, and I will save it. So if this, so in the process of demand planning, the planner generates a local demand plan, which means this is the demand planner's plan. But what is the level at which it is happening? It is happening location, customer, and product level. And he writes a new number, which is 215. Now, this number is different than your start forecast, the sales department's number, and the last year's whatever was sold. So this is the purpose for which he is coming to this template and he is putting a value in the local demand plan. So understood? So this is step 3 in your demand planning process. There is step 4, which is
So Pankaj, I have one question here. So do we need to run any here, or we just need to put manually all the things here into this local demand plan?
No job, only manual.
Only manual.
And good that you asked this question. So if you look at this key figure, and if you look at this number 151, you can see that this 151 is same as this stat forecast number. So if you go to the configuration and calculation of this key figure, you will find the calculation is written in such a way that if null, copy stat forecast or have the value that is there in this key figure. So similar to what we have seen yesterday in the actual quantity adjusted, you will find that similar calculation is written for this key figure also.
Okay.
So by default, it copies the value that is there in this statistical forecast quantity. And if you input something manually over here, then you will be able to save that. And we can verify this fact. If I load the other finished product for which we have not generated the stat forecast, you will find that it will be blank there. Okay, let's load that. So this is how you can go back to configuration and you can read the calculations. So you see now this is the other product. For this product, there is no stat value and hence there is no local demand plan by default, because that is the calculation written for this key figure. That by default you copy this key figure, and if there is a manual thing coming up, then store that. So you're able to see that manual is stored here, right? Okay, now we move to the next template, which is the 4th template, and that is about global demand plan. So while this is loading, so SAP has beautifully created all these templates. So as a consultant, we don't need to do a lot of things in the system. What we need to do is a lot of understanding of the data, the algorithms, and that's where the functional people should be focusing, not much into those configuration, because that is one-time thing, and SAP has done a lot of things to make the life easier for us. Okay, so this is step 4 in the demand planning process. What is the final purpose? I want to have the values populated in this demand planning quantity. But before I go there, let's look at the level at which this is working. So the level at which this is working is product family and customer region. So it is an aggregated level. The time guarantee is still weak, but we are looking at the data at the product family and customer region level. I will take a pause. Is there anybody who does not understand this product family and customer region so that we can talk about it? So what is a product family? Okay, so let's talk about it because this is very important to understand. Otherwise, you will not
So
understand.
product family is like suppose we are dealing with music systems. So we have multiple music systems. Like we can club in one like 2.1, 3.1 or soundbar or anything. So all the finished product which belongs to same nature that can be a part of the same family, same product group we can say.
Okay, I think very close to the right answer, but I am
Means
not.
product with the same characteristics actually we belongs to a similar kind of
Okay.
product family.
Yes, correct. So normally that is how we do. So it's a hierarchy. It's the material hierarchy. It's a product hierarchy. So the data that SAP has given us, it has a product family over here. Okay. Now I will show you in one of the product family. So let's say product family 100. So you can see in this product family, which is called family 100 headphones, we have got 1, 2, and 3 finished products. Rest everything that belongs to this family are actually your semi-finished products or raw material. And since we are doing demand planning, that's why I'm not talking about all this. These things will be talked when we do the supply planning. So if I go back to this template, the key figures which are being seen over here is showing me the data which belongs to this product family. So we are no more talking about a product over here. We are now talking about a family. Okay. Now, so as we can see, this family has 3 different products. So what will happen? This demand planning quantity is going to show me a number that is a total sum of demand planning quantity of the 3 products that we saw. So let me come back to this. So you will see this local demand plan is 215 over here. Okay. Now that goes directly to this demand planning quantity. So there is calculation written to this key figure, demand planning quantity. So this gets copied over here. And then this demand planning quantity gets copied to your global demand planning quantity. Now, if you look at these two products which belongs to this family, only first product has a number. Let me give another number over here, which is 100. Okay, and I'll save it.
So Pankaj, one question.
Hmm.
So like the product ID in the customer, all these things should be created in S4, then only it should be coming in IBP, right?
Yes, normally all these things exist in S4 and via
So in
CPDS,
yeah. So in
we
same
bring.
way like so in same way like the product family also should be created in S4 or
Yes. You're right. So we have material family, do have material hierarchy there. So we bring it from there.
Might be
So,
metal group. Metal group is
product
yes,
group.
product family.
product group, material group, all those things are there in S4 and we bring it from there. So we don't normally we don't create master data.
So here only we are getting key figures and all, but master data coming from S4.
Yes, and even key figures you saw, it's all given by SAP. So that also exists. In many circumstances, we need more key figure for some business situations, then we create it. But otherwise, everything is there. Okay. What we really need to focus is to understand how it works. So you will see here now 215 was the local plan for IBP 100. I created another 100 here for IBP 110. Okay. So now if you are going to talk about this family, so the demand plan becomes 215 plus 100, 315. because I have added 100 here for the other product. So if I come to this view, this template, and do a refresh, so then it will show me 315 over here. So this level, planning level, and the level at which you are working is very important to understand. You see, now it has become 315. So the process of demand planning, which we started by doing a history cleansing, we did the history cleansing at product, location, and customer ID level. Then we generated the forecast. We generated the forecast at product, location, and customer level. Then we generated the local demand plan. Again, we did this at the product, location, customer level. So that's where we put it manually. But then we came to the last template where we are doing we are generating the global demand plan, and we want to do this at a product family level. So we get a 315 quantity, and then if I want to change and make it 500, I will do it over here. So what I'm saying is that, all right, we did generate some numbers, we did something at lower level, but at a higher level, I think that in this week I will be selling 500 quantity for this family. And if that is the case, then what it means at the individual product level, so you will go, and if you come here and if you do a refresh, we will see that what it means. So you look at this number, demand planning quantity, it has got changed. So it has now become 341. So this key figure has got a number called 500 at a higher level, and then it disaggregated that value to these two different products, and then it comes up with this. So if you add these two, it will become 500. So the demand planning, within demand planning, this aggregation and disaggregation happens across timeline, across product hierarchy, across location hierarchy, and also across customer hierarchy. So all these things happens in this demand planning process. Okay. So this is the last step in demand planning process. Once we have got these numbers available, then the planner who is working on these 4 templates, finally he arrives here, and then this is the final key figure where he got the numbers available, and then this will be released for supply planning. At this point, he can also take a look at the revenues. So what is the revenue that he will be generating in future based on the forecast and the demand numbers that he has got. Okay, I think we don't have the price here, actual price, but if we will have the price, then you will be able to see this demand planning revenue. So you will be able to, and you can see this in monthly bucket. I don't want to see what is the weekly revenue. Okay, over here it is there. So right, so you can see this is the revenue that I will be generating in my future buckets. And this is what you want to know. Okay, what is the how much dollar I'm going to generate in August? How much dollar I'm going to generate in September, etc. So this entire process is called demand planning, and there are 4 steps, and those steps are there. So even though we have many FICO consultants in our training, you will be able to relate that even the financial planning has something to do with this quantity related planning that we have been doing. Okay, so I'll take a pause. Is there any question to anybody in this? No question. Okay, very nice.
So Pankaj, Vikas here.
Yeah.
So into live system, do we need to do all the things in all the 4 sheets, or is there only onto one, like this global demand plan we will work and it will flow to all the sheets every time? So how we actual planner in day-to-day activity works onto the sheets, all 4 sheets?
Normally all 4, depending upon. So if he wants to do history cleansing, which he should be doing, because every week there is a new data coming for the previous week. So he must come to this template and check whether my last week has got the data for all the product location combinations or not. If he finds that there is some product combination where the data is missing, then he can run this manually, or he can put some manual input in the adjusted quantity key figure. Or if he does not do that, we can certainly have a job which can be doing the missing value update. But it is a place where there is a key figure given to him for manual adjustment, and he can come, he can do that. One. The second one
And what
is,
if we? Sorry.
go
Please
ahead.
go ahead.
No, I was
Okay.
going to other it.
What if we keep all these key figures, means which are into the 4 sheets, into single sheet?
Yes, we can. Nothing happens. We can keep all those key figures instead of going to different key figures, different templates. I can bring the stat forecast, statistical forecast quantity over here. The only thing that we need to keep in mind that if the level at which we are working with a key figure are different, then we will not be able to work. So as
Yes.
we have seen, 110, and now I'll speak these numbers. So 110 is for history cleansing. It is at a level product location customer. Similarly, 120 and 130, which is forecasting and local demand plan. These are also at these levels. So we can bring all those key figure in the same template. Doesn't matter. So
Okay.
for example, we have brought it here, so you'll be able to see. Why am I not able to see? Because
This product, this which was that.
okay, I think okay, let me see.
Simulation cell forecasted. This product family should be there, I think so. Is it so?
No, not needed. We should be able to see the numbers. Okay, so we'll see why it is not appearing here. But the answer to your question is that we can bring any of the key figure that is there in this planning area in the same template. However, depending upon the level, we will be able to work with that key figure around. Okay, so that's the answer to that question. And now in 120 template, which is where we have this stat forecast key figure. There is no adjustment that can happen here. But if I want to see what was my exposed, what was my other things, we can come to this and we can see that. So based on the purpose, these templates are created by standard SAP. They can be clubbed into one, or they can be kept as 4, and then the planner can work with these templates.
Pankaj, can you give a little more light onto this exposed? So I didn't get.
Okay. Yeah, we can talk about that. There was another question.
Pankaj, in claims history, I think Horizon is up to 33 week only. That's why we are not seeing stats.
Very good catch. Good catch. You're right. So this is only till past. So that's why that key figure was not having any value. So current week is 34/20. So if we take of future, so as you can see, we will have to make this adjustment if you want to bring this key figure here. It may make your working a little bit difficult because you are working with a historical number in this date. So depending upon all those factors, you can make one template or multiple templates. Very good catch. So this is where you can see the numbers. Okay. So the other question was about the exposed history. So yeah, let's talk about that. So exposed forecast. Let's go to 120. So this key figure called exposed forecast, and you will see that for the other product, this key figure is blank. So first of all, this key figure only gets populated when you run the forecasting on this. So whenever you have got a forecast value for this, for your product location combination, during that process only this exposed forecast is created. What is the meaning of this ex post forecast? It is the extrapolation of your forecast number in past. So how system works? It first generates these numbers. So it created these numbers 144, 151, etc., etc. And then it plots a line, and then it extrapolates that line back into future, and then it will generate these numbers. So ex post forecast are those quantity which is extrapolation of the forecasted quantity in the past. Understood? Now, these ex post forecast quantities can be different and may be different many a times from your actual numbers. Okay, and if that is the case, then you will be. I don't know why it is exactly same in this case. I think because so let me use uh, another forecasting model. Okay. So let's use triple exponentials. Because we did the best fit, so it applied multiple algorithms and then it selected the best one, which was very close to this. So while this is running, I want to have a bio break for 2 minutes. So I'll be back. So let this run. I'll be back in 2 minutes. Oh, it has already completed. So let's see. Do a refresh. Yeah, you can see the difference here. Now it is different. So actual quantity is 225 and 227 is your ex post forecast. Since I ran it without giving any filter, so we have got the forecast for IVP 110 also. Give 2 minutes, I will be back. Okay, all right, I'm back. So we can see that ex post quantity has been calculated here. and you have the actual quantity. Now, what happens with this exposed quantity? Let's have a look. So in this example, if let's take these 3 weeks only. So this is exposed forecast. So as you can see, your sales history for last 3 weeks are these, and your exposed forecast are these. So these exposed forecasts are used to calculate the error. So how the error is calculated? So there is so let's understand MAPE. So the full form of MAP is mean absolute percentage error. Okay. So first of all, we calculate error. Error is what was actual minus what is my forecast for that bucket. So we calculate the error for each of the buckets. Okay. Then we calculate a percent. In this case, all of them are positive only, but then we calculate absolute percentage error. So if there is something negative, we leave the negative and we just calculate the absolute value. So absolute ABS. ABS. Okay. Then it is still absolute error. Absolute percentage error will be this upon your history. So this is your percentage error. And so, and then MAPE is your mean absolute percentage error. So that is your average of the errors of these 3 buckets. And if I put percentage, okay. So what it says to me that and this is exposed forecast, and certainly you will have some forecast value. So let me just write something. So what it indicates to me is that whatever forecast numbers I have generated, that forecast has an error of 1.8%. So this is 98.2% accurate. So that is the meaning of this. So exposed forecast is calculated in the past by looking at the forecast number that happens during the forecasting run itself. And then the use of this exposed forecast is to calculate the error. And this error is also calculated during the forecasting run. So after the forecasting run, you'll be able to see these numbers, and also this number, because you have seen the fourth tab in our forecast model. That is the post-processing tab. That is where this error is getting calculated. So this is how the error is calculated. Now, similar to anything else, you can come here to the help site, and you will find out how how many errors are there, and what is the formula for calculating those errors. So I have tried for MAP, but this is MP, this is MAP, and all these things are already here. So you'll understand how it is being calculated. Okay, so that is the purpose of exposed, and this is how it is used. And there are many more standard key figures. So for example, I never talked about this one. This is residual FC minus delivered. This is nothing but your this is a difference between AL5 and AL6. So AL5 is what? Between exposed, and this is the difference between these two. So there are similar many more key figures where there is a business reason why those key figures are calculated, and there is a business meaning that they give us. So 6 tells me that my exposed is more than my actual of that week by 6 quantity. So there is here it is minus. So it can give you a kind of bias as to how my forecast is doing with respect to my actual number. So the demand planners need to see all this data to have some inference, and hence there are so many many different key figures that are available with some formula to give them those visibility. Okay. So the last thing that I'll cover in demand, and then we can close the topic of demand today, is we saw the master data for product, and we understood the product family. So product family is having multiple product IDs. Similar to that, we have location hierarchy as well. Okay, so let's look at that, and we'll also look at customer hierarchy. These three hierarchy we must understand thoroughly, because that is being used very frequently, and that will be used by us also. So you see, this is location. So location has location region as the another hierarchy. So if you look at there are three regions, and if you look at Americas, so there are one DC and one plant. So incidentally, we have only one DC for this region, but you can have multiple DC in a region, and then when you talk about at the region level, you will have to add all the key figures for all the DCs that belong to that region. So that's how the hierarchy will help you to aggregate the data. Okay. So that's the region specific. And where is that being used? If you go to the 140 template, you'll see the customer region here. So customer region is not similar to location region, but we'll find the customer region here in the customer master data. Okay. So you will see this is the customer region. So in Americas, there are three customers, 0001, 0002, which starts with 171. So if I want to see the value forecast for Americas, so what will happen? If I want to see the forecast for Americas, it will add all the products that are being sold to all these customers, and then it will show me the number. So that is the meaning here. So here we are seeing product family and customer region level. So you see this family and this. So all the products that belongs to this family and all the customers that belong to this region, they're all combined together, and that is the number that we are seeing here. So that's the aggregation of number that is going on. Okay, so it is happening at the this level. And with that, let me come back to this sheet. And once again, we will be able to now understand what is the meaning of demand review. So demand review happens at a level which is at monthly, product category, and customer group. So for a CEO or for the chief of the companies, they don't have the time to go at the SKU level and weekly level. They're not interested in that. When the demand review process happens, they want to see, okay, how many product family my company has. So let's see how many product family my company has products. So I have three product family 100, family 200, family 300. And then how many customer region we are selling? So they are selling in three customer regions. So three product family, three customer regions. So total combination 9. They only want to see 9 numbers when they are doing a demand review. So demand review happens at the monthly, product family, and customer region level. They don't have time to go to the SKU level. And at that level also, they normally look at the revenues. So they will see, okay, what is the dollar value that I'm going to sell for this combination? So for product family 100 in Americas, I am selling $45,000 in August. Is that okay? Yes, okay. Okay, move on. What is that in Asia Pac? So the demand review happens at the higher hierarchy levels. Any adjustment that they want to do, they do it at this level. And if they do adjustment at this level, then that has to get disaggregated at your product location level. So that's where your key figure definition of disaggregation, etc., come into picture. Okay, so that is the meaning of demand review. So demand review is a process where you perform the reviewing of the demand data at monthly, product family, and customer group level. Demand planning we do at weekly, product and location level, customer included. But in demand planning, there is a global demand plan that we need to generate at the product family level as well. And third is demand sensing. This happens at the daily level. So we want to generate the forecast at the daily level. So which means right now, if you see my forecast numbers, these are all at weekly level. But I want to know how much I will be selling to this customer from this location of this product on the Monday of this week. So that information I cannot get it here. In order to get that information more scientifically, there is a module, there is a process within IBP which is called demand sensing that breaks down this number 222 into the Sunday, Monday, Tuesday quantity of that week. So breaking up in the daily bucket happens by the process called demand sensing. So the level here is daily, product, and customer, or it can also have location. So with that, I think we completed the demand planning portion of our training. You will see that there are a lot of things which are inside the help documentation and a lot many things that can be learned. But at least by following what we have done in last 3-4 days, you will be able to understand how to approach and how to learn it a little bit more and what can be done. Okay, so the hands-on for today is very similar, very easy. Whatever I have done in this session, that I loaded the templates. I created one forecast profile, forecast model, and then I ran and I generated the statistical forecast. I made some adjustment local plan in the global demand plan. So all these things needs to be done as part of hands-on today. And when you do that, you will be able to perform more and you'll be able to learn more. So we are exact on time, 12:30. So we'll close it today. I'll set up another one for tomorrow where we are going to learn about the supply plan. So anybody has any question before we close the session for today?
No.
Okay, great. No question. Then good luck with your hands-on for today. Tomorrow, while we will have the session from 10:30 to 12:30 for supply planning, we will also have the quiz open. So post our session, you can attempt that quiz, because that quiz also have supply planning questions. So it's important that we cover that. Okay. So all right. So we'll close the call now. Thank you for joining. We'll connect tomorrow. Thank you.
Thanks, Pankaj.
Thanks, Pankaj.
Thank you, Pankaj.
Thank you, Pankaj.
Thank you, Pankaj.